What
type of persona did you have?
Very straightforward.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I'm learning.
Okay.
I'm just trying to keep it straight and play and choose music. But I loved music even then. So we were playing music that was a light jazz and pop. Tony Bennett, light jazz, Ahmad Jamal, Dinah Washington, and so forth. That was the mix that was at late night. Because I followed on the air a jazz disc jockey at times on the weekends. I think his name was Joe Rico. And I would watch him and so forth and so on. So I was loving it. I was truly loving it. But once again saying, where is this taking me? Going to get to a bigger market, which I did. And then the bigger market, there was a television station there, and I had a chance then to be a judge on a talent show, an amateur talent show called Take a Bow. And so then I was doing radio and television.
Isn't that something?
That goes back to the picture, right? And from
Sure does.
that period of time, I loved game shows, and I was hired to host a pilot of a game show. And that was a radical idea at the time. This was the 1970s. 1975. Yeah, 75. No, there'd never been a black game show host. And this guy from New York, who was today a friend of mine, and we've done business together, said, how about this guy on the radio who I see doing the judging thing? Maybe he can be a host. And so I hosted a pilot. It didn't take me where I thought it would take me. Once again, detours. The pilot was not sold into syndication, which was the goal of the production company. But there were two pilots done around the same time, one done by a recognized company in Los Angeles, and they tried a black host. His name was Adam Wade. He was a singer of some note. He had a hit record. And Adam's show went on the air, I've forgotten the name of it, Musical Chairs maybe. It's on CBS for at least 13 weeks. And I just saw Adam about 3 or 4 months ago. So I didn't get to be a game show host, but that opened my eyes to the possibilities, and I came to visit Los Angeles. I was living in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada at the time, and I met with people at ABC and so forth, and I said, I want to be a game show host. And I met with a guy at Goodson Todman, a big game show producer, and he encouraged me. And so I quit my job and sold some of my toys. I had an accumulation of toys at the time. Remember the airplane that I bought and like that. I sold all that, and I came to L.A. just on speculation to say, let's see if I can make a go of it here. Give it a try. And that was the beginning. And so here, I never became a host of a show that went on the air, but I went to work for the NBC television network, and I hosted a talk show over at Channel 13 in Los Angeles, KCOP, and I was also a vacation relief news anchor there. So I put radio behind me. I never went into another radio station to look for a job or to host a show at that time, and I said, television is what I'm going to do. And it was like probably Napoleon burning the bridges. I said, radio's behind me now. If I'm going to go to the next stage, I have to put that in the rearview mirror and trust my gut that I will manage to find my way into television. And I worked as a freelancer for a couple of years and learned more about television, and wound up being hired by somebody I didn't know at the NBC network to come and work there.
And then from there, my gosh, things really...
That was like grad school.
Yeah.
It was like grad school.
Yeah, I would say.
Because I was in broadcast standards where I worked for some period of time there. I did more than one job, subsequent jobs there. And that picture of going back and how things evolve and how those little pictures become your reality. My boss came in one day, Maury was his name, and he said, so-and-so is out on maternity leave, and she covers the Tonight Show. Would you like to do that?
Oh, gosh.
And I fairly well jumped out of my chair saying, that could work.
No problem.
So He marched me over, wrote the memo, and marched me over to
My
Fred
gosh.
DeCordova, the producer at that time of The Tonight Show. And Fred was very polite, blah, 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 blah. A nice man and Hollywood royalty, really. And he marched me out the hall into this sort of very dimly lit office, and it was John Carson's office.
Isn't that something?
And sat me down there and introduced me to John.
Oh my!
And
Now, what was that feeling like?
I
when
tell
you
you-
were marched in there and you're sitting down and you're sitting in front of Johnny Carson. I
Yeah.
mean,
And then Fred excused himself to go do work and left Carson and me there together. Now, there was a grin on my face that went not from ear to ear, went from scalp to scalp, I'm sure. And I had to explain myself to Mr. Carson.
in that moment, did you say, "I've just got to tell you something"?
I got to tell you
Yeah.
something. And I said, not all that many years ago, I was living in a housing project in Niagara Falls, and you were on The Tonight Show from New York. And I came home from my little part-time job at the radio station and would click on the TV set and keep the volume extremely low because my parents were asleep. And I watched you on The Tonight Show. Never imagining consciously, I must emphasize, that I would be where you were, meet you, or work on The Tonight Show. And there I was.